Well, I'm going to have a seat, and I'm going to talk with Mr. Butch Bridges. Butch, how are you doing?
Yes, sir. Doing good. Doing good.
I want to say thank you for coming by here at my office and to talk to me about history. I guess it was several years ago, and it was raining, and I went on, Facebook had just came out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was like 2007 or 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I started, just researching and looking at history of Ardmore, and your name kept popping up.
Uh-huh.
And you have this website.
22 years.
And you started, what, in 96 or so?
Yeah, 96.
Tell us about your page about Ardmore Oklahoma history, Butch.
Well, how I got started, so every now and then someone asks me, how did you start all of that? And I tell them that I sent out a little email to like a dozen friends, and they emailed with some history, piece of history. And they emailed me back, said, would you send that to my mother or to my uncle or to my brother? And in about 30 days, I had 50 people.
Mm-hmm.
Started out with 12, ended up with 50 in 30 days.
Wow, that's pretty good.
And I thought, wow. And lo and behold, in 90 days, I had several hundred.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got several thousand.
Yes.
And it's a lot.
And what are people asking you, Butch?
Well, most of the time they're asking about something that their grandmother told them.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I have the answers, sometimes I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you something funny. I've even had people ask me about some piece of history, and I'll say, well, I don't know if I remember. They said, well, Butch, it was on your website. I got 22 years on it. I can't remember all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said, Butch, it was on your website.
Yes.
But I really enjoy history.
Mm-hmm.
I love doing it.
Yes.
And it's just almost overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so many things I wanted to share with you, and this is just part one of a series. I'm going to have different guests that's going to be joining us. And Butch, one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to take this time to share this audio with everyone and put it on this YouTube channel because, one day the good Lord's going to call us home, and when Mac McGalliard, you know who he was.
Oh, yes.
He took all these incredible pictures
Exactly.
of Ardmore and the history, and he's gone. And
He's passed away.
Yeah.
And that's all gone now.
Yeah.
You can't ask him questions.
No, you have to go to the library.
Yeah.
And you have to pull out microfiche and film.
And sit there for 2 hours rolling through microfilm to find the article you want.
Yeah.
I've done it many times.
Yeah, and I've done the same thing too.
Uh-huh.
I found this book that was written by Mr. Frame,
Uh-huh.
and we're going to talk about all that today while we can. But I wanted to leave something where the people can just listen because it's embedded in our memories. But first of all, let's talk about Ardmore, and I call this the Eastside of Ardmore because that's where it all started.
Yeah, that's where I grew up.
Yeah.
Spent 21 years there.
Now you lived on the northeast side.
Uh-huh.
Where at?
3rd and H.
Okay, I know
H,
where that.
northeast.
Was that where Pretty's or Hunt's?
Across the street from it.
Okay, now I'm trying to remember where that lumber yard was.
It was on the corner.
Because there's a church right there in the corner.
Well, the lumberyard faced the church.
Okay.
But the lumberyard was tore down about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the front door of my grandfather's lumberyard, Carmen Lumber Company, faced the front door of that church.
I got you. And that's Metropolitan Church.
Yes, it's now.
Okay. And then across the street, Hunt's. Now, what was it like at Hunt's? Because the building is still sitting there right now.
Yes, it is.
But what was it like going to Hunt's?
Well, there was a grocery store there, and after school, many times, for several years after school, I'd go work there.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly sack groceries.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd work a couple hours.
Was this in the 50s or 60s?
60s.
In the 60s or so, yeah. When you get a loaf of bread for a quarter or something.
Yeah, a quarter.
Yeah.
Or go down to Small's Bakery and get a loaf for a nickel.
Where was that at?
Right behind the church.
Okay.
On the south side of the church was a Small's Bakery.
Okay, I think I know what building that is.
Yes, it's a brick building. My grandfather built it.
But Pretty's was right behind it, and they was bringing in, they was putting out product left and right if you loved cheese.
See, Small's Bakery was first in that building.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather built it.
Mm-hmm.
And when Ron Purdy bought it to open up his Purdy's salad dressings,
Oh yeah.
he came down to the lumberyard and asked my grandfather if he would walk down to the building and talk about how he constructed it,
Mm-hmm.
how it was made, stuff. So my grandfather went down there and explained to Ron Purdy, you know, this is how I built it, this is how the walls are, the ceilings, blah, blah, blah. And next thing we knew, Ron Purdy opened up his salad dressings in there.
Oh yes. And that product was being put out in all the grocery stores here in Ardmore.
It was popular.
All over Southern Oklahoma.
It was popular. He had the best salad dressing you could buy, I guess.
Yes.
But great product.
Now let's talk about, you went to Washington Elementary, which is now the Gloria Ainsworth Daycare.
Yeah.
And that building burned down.
Burned down
because of a fire.
They removed it.
Yes.
And the Gloria Ainsworth Center was built there.
And Fraley Park is across the street.
Across the street.
Yes. So I want to talk about that area because 3rd Street, 4th Street, and 5th Street, because 5th Street is now Martin Luther King.
Yes.
What was Ardmore like during that time period? Because we had African Americans that lived on the south side on Burton Street, and right there where HFV, well at that time period, the Eastside Community Center.
Yes.
And then African Americans lived past Mount Zion Apartments,
Yes.
but they lived near Douglas.
Yes.
But there were and actually 3 or 4 blocks that went all the way to P Street, and then there was Boyd's grocery store on that corner.
On the corner.
So kind of tell everyone what it was like during that time period, because I've heard all kinds of incredible stories, and if you look to there, you'll see the history of those homes and how well they were built during that time period.
Well, my great grandmother, she lived right across the street from Washington School on the east side,
Mm-hmm.
WH Street. My grandmother lived there, and during school breaks, I'd go over to her house for a few minutes
Mm-hmm.
and come back to school. And the playgrounds was basically on the east side of the school and the north side of the school. The south side of the school was off limits.
Mm-hmm.
They had grass there, pretty grass.
Mm-hmm.
The principal did. John Connolly had grass there, and he had signs up that said, "Do not get on grass."
Mm-hmm.
Well, me and my friend decided one day we'd go out there and play on the grass.
You got caught, did you?
We got caught. He called us into the office and gave us a paddling.
Mm-hmm. When it was legal then.
Yeah, I had several, I don't know, 2 or 3
Encounters?
paddlings. Yeah.
Meetings?
It was called the Board of Education.
Yes.
The Board of Education. And I got 2 or 3 paddlings for some infraction, but as I look back, it didn't hurt me any. It made me a better person.
Yes. Well, let's talk about that, because I know when I was a little kid, I didn't get a chance to go there. I went to school at Jefferson.
Yes.
That's where I went. But Douglas School was right there off of L and M Street Northwest.
Yeah, L Street.
L Street. And then you had, of course, Dunbar, which was located
Off Main Street.
right
Main.
there.
Mhm.
So how was it intermingling with African Americans during that time period, and what was it like during that time period that you remember the most?
Well, I had friends, my age, I guess you'd say. This would be in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
They were African American. They lived 2 or 3 blocks south of me, and we played some together. We would see each other at Hunt's Grocery quite often and talk, and we got along great. I never had a problem. They was good to me, and I was good to them.
But we just couldn't go to school together then.
Couldn't go to school together at that time, and several of us would go on east of that area to some woods that was underdeveloped, and we'd play down there on these hills, real tall hills, about 6 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And me and some of those black friends, we'd play, you know, got along great.
Mm-hmm. But we just couldn't go to school together.
Couldn't go to school together. It was against the law for them to go to school at Washington School and even at Ardmore High School.
Yeah.
Now, in 1967, after it was integrated, there was 2 black girls came to Ardmore High School.
What year did you finish Ardmore High?
60,
You was in 60 what?
68.
Okay, you was 60. You was in that group with 68.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Now in 67, 2 black girls came.
Mm-hmm.
And we got along great.
Mm-hmm. I think Dempsey Patton came over there in 69, right after you graduated.
Well, 2 years after those 2 black girls came to Ardmore High School, 2 black boys. So
Mhm.
now we had 4 in our school.
Mm-hmm. But everybody knew they was there.
Well, and nobody had a problem.
Got along real good.
Never had a problem.
But the junior high was behind you then?
Yes,
Okay.
on the east side, on the west side of the Ardmore High School.
Uh-huh.
And it's gone now.
Mhm.
It had a fire and they tore it down.
Wow. So, let's go back, because you keep saying this word fire. If you notice, if you've been here in Ardmore, and I'm just going to share this with you, we dealt with fires before in this city, going back to 1895, and that first fire was at Caddo. Is that correct?
On East Main, yeah.
Caddo on East Main, that's where all the businesses was going on. And as you know, right here in Ardmore, Keys Grocery is right there in the corner.
Exactly.
But Caddo was just booming. People came from everywhere on Saturdays to do their trade, didn't they?
Oh yeah, they had Miss Mayhall's variety store. She sold everything in it. I can barely remember going in there as a child.
Mm-hmm.
She sold everything from pots and pans to brooms, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And people went there to buy their household stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Mayhall.
Yeah, but the fire came and it just wiped everything out. And then there was another fire that came in like 1917.
17.
Yes, and that was because of a oil car that was
Explosion.
an explosion.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what the guy was doing, what he was thinking.
I've heard that he was welding, but I don't know. On top of it, welding.
They already said they smelled gas.
Uh-huh.
You don't.
I know.
Butch, you and I even know that.
He didn't take precautions, and it cost his life.
And people lost their lives. People lost their lives on both fires. But guess what? Ardmore did is they rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been reading the books and everything, and it really, you know, it would take me all day to share with you about all the history. But this book Mr. Frame wrote talks about Ardmore. You'll find out that Washington Street was named after some ranchers.
Yeah, they had different names before the 1900s. They had different names. It wasn't A Street. It was something else.
Yeah.
It wasn't B Street. It was some other name.
Yeah.
I don't remember what they were, but yeah.
But
I have a map of it.
yeah, but then also, but the map of First National Bank was right there on Caddo, and then after the fire and whatever they did, they rebuilt it, and you know its location now is on the current location. Well, back during that time period in 1919 was on Washington, and then they built the new place, and it was on A Street.
Block West.
Yeah, a block west. I remember being a kid there because there was a J.C. Penney's right there in that area.
On to the west.
Yes, to the west of it. So all this was going on, and for African Americans, we had to be on the east side of the tracks, where Gary Raymond's Golden Gloves facility now. There used to be the warehouse for B.L. Owens, but across the street was where it was all dirt roads during that time period. Butch.
Yeah. Oh, so many. Where I grew up on 3rd Northeast, I did have concrete street in front of our house, but when you went a block east, it was dirt all the way on out 3rd Street.
Mm-hmm.
The concrete stopped at I in 3rd Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't actually live on the dirt road there. All my friends that lived on East were. They were dirt roads.
Dirt roads all during that time
All
period.
during that time.
And F Street was a nice street though.
Yeah.
You had Dr. Boyd lived
Dr.
on.
Boyd lived there.
Get your sugar pills.
Yeah, I went, my mother took me there several times.
See,
They
Butch didn't
worked
know I
there.
knew anything about that. But
Yeah,
anyway.
if you got poison ivy, that's a poison ivy or poison oak, either one. Everyone knew to go to Dr. Boyd and get some medicine.
Right there in F Street.
Uh-huh.
And right all up and down there, prominent people lived in there. And as a matter of fact, I had obtained a map because the Eastside of Ardmore was the place to be.
That's where all the wealthy people live. Right across the street to the north of Dr. Boyd's house was the Dobbies.
Yes.
And they donated their land to build the swimming pool.
Right.
That's where Ardmore started.
Right there.
In that area.
Right. And you know, and I was just talking to the daughter, her granddaughter, Carol Sutton's granddaughter, who went to school at Ardmore right after he did. I talked to her and she told me when her father, I guess her grandfather was Sam Dobby.
Yes.
And what they had did was they gave the land to the city of Ardmore, and then they put this big swimming pool there.
Yes.
But that property was actually where their home was. And
yes.
The Dobbies had ranches and they had horses, and they kept them right there on East Main where we see all the horses.
Exactly.
Right there. And there was a gas station there, a fire station there.
Yes.
All the East Ardmore, up and down Main Street.
I worked at that gas station every summer for several years.
Did you? You worked for that guy?
For the gas station.
Oh, at the gas station.
The guy that owned the gas station.
Yes, I used to ride my bike up there, and for 25 cents, I could fill up my gas can and go cut some grass.
I'd ride my motorcycle up there and fill it with gas.
Butch done it all. You hear something about a motorcycle? Now, I was told he drove an ambulance too.
For 16 years.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
I've been all over this town in this southern Oklahoma. I can drive down any street in this town and I can see a house and say, you know, I've been in that house and took a lady to the hospital or whatever. Now, I might not remember their name, but I remember going in that house.
Yes. But Ardmore has so much to carry from. And of course, if you're wondering, well, why did the city go west? Well, from my notes of understanding is that a settlement, you know, Santa Fe, it's so much that I could tell you. I had to come back later on to tell you that the railroad, it was July the 28th, 1887.
1887
is when it was all established.
Right.
And so after the explosions and everything, and the people who lost their lives, there was a settlement that was given to the city, and they were able to just move on west during that time period. And the town, and the first thing you said to me when you came in this office is, "My, how much this town has grown."
Boy, has it. I'd like to, Cedric, let's back up just a second to the swimming pool.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
On F Northeast.
And by the way, E Street and F Street, E Street, where First Baptist is, that was originally called Dobby Street. So go right ahead, please.
I think it was 1957, about. I was like 8 years old, and they started building that swimming pool. We always called it the big swimming pool. I'd ride my bicycle from 2 blocks on 3rd down there up to that location where they had the bulldozer digging out the swimming pool. To me, at 7 years old, I thought that was the deepest hole in the world. You know how your imagination is. I thought, wow. And I'd stand there and watch them digging that hole for that swimming pool.
Wow. Well, you know what, and it was really nice. Now, I'm going to tell you a story, Butch, because see, the swimming pool we had was at the HFV Wilson
Center. On East Main there.
On East Main.
Exactly.
Where the building, the gym is now, that's where we went swimming at. And we had Mr. Varner and Mr. John Milton Grant.
I know them all.
Who made a way for us to have activities, and you know, and it was basically almost free. It just cost us $0.25. T.C. Varner was our lifesaver, you know, lifeguard.
Know him,
yeah. But we could not go swim at that pool, and the way we referred to it was a white swimming pool.
It was a white swimming pool.
I'm just gonna be honest with you.
That's right, and that's the way it was back in those days.
Yeah, and I'm like 10 years old.
I'm just thankful those days are over.
Yeah. So we want you to know about the history, what it was, but then when they closed the swimming pool on the east side, because it was an east side swimming pool. Then we were able to go over to the other place, and
the big swimming pool.
To the big swimming pool, and I did go off the big board, Butch.
I went off one or twice, but I was scared. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was scared to go off the board.
All right, now Butch, here's another story, right quick. And we're talking about the east side of Ardmore, the original Ardmore. Butch, the viaduct was made out of wood, and I was told it caught on fire.
It was creosote wood.
Really?
Soaked in oil, you know, for creosote oil to make it waterproof. And of course, when it caught fire, I was at home. Me and Jimmy Ecker was playing in our yard, and we saw the smoke, and we thought, "Oh, good! It's Washington School. We won't have to go to school."
Look at Butch.
We won't have to go to school. We ran all the way up there and saw it was the viaduct.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was soaked, the wood was soaked in creosote oil, it was the thickest, blackest smoke you'd ever see.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendously thick. And it took down a couple of firemen that got caught in that smoke.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they had to be rushed to the hospital.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it was so toxic. It was toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Creosote.
And then I remember, I don't remember that bridge during that time period, but I've seen the video of it. But they came back and they put the viaduct on there, and today we can ride across it. Now also, when it snows, guess what people do? Get the little cardboard boxes.
Cardboard box, that's what we would get. Now the old viaduct that burned, it wasn't straight across.
Mm-hmm.
Because through the years, it was kind of had humps in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of hilly
Mm-hmm.
in a way. Of course, the new viaduct is concrete, it's straight all the way across.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there's some other things I want to ask you about, like WPA, the Work Progress Association.
Uh-huh.
They built Jefferson, and I remember when you looked on the east side of Ardmore, there were brick deals that stood in the ground to identify the streets. Like Jefferson is located on Carter Street.
Carter Street.
Yeah. And so during that time period, there wasn't no stop signs. I mean, there wasn't no street signs up. They were bricked.
Didn't need them.
that you just looked and saw them on the ground and so. But do you know where Mr. Carl Rhodes lived at? Because they had a train trestle that went right by his house, and that train would come from off of 9th or 8th Street and go take you straight to OK Iron. They'll get all the supplies. Do you ever remember seeing the train going through on the east side over there?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Now Mr. Rhodes,
He lived right
he had
there.
the photography.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew him. Yeah,
Mhm.
went to his place. I tried several years ago to find some of his kinfolk that might have some old pictures that he might have saved. You know.
I know where they're at.
Yeah, I figured you did. You know I wasn't going to leave without bringing it up. But yeah, Mr. Rhodes.
And his wife was my teacher,
Uh-huh.
Bernice Rhodes.
Yeah, I remember him well.
Yes, but he has so many. I mean, he has a collection, and I've been working on them. As a matter of fact, I've obtained the negatives, and hopefully I'll go through there and go through the list and can tell you about all these families. The legendary Carl Chris. And I'm going to do a segment on, of course, the Ragsdale family, Lincoln Ragsdale, Mayzola McCurson. What do you remember the most about Mayzola McCurson?
She was always dignified. She dressed nice. She spoke good, and she was respected.
Mm-hmm. And she was the mayor of Ardmore, first
Mayor of
mayor.
Ardmore, yeah.
And Ardmore at that time period became an all-American city.
Yeah, I did.
Mm-hmm.
About, what, 87 or somewhere in there.
Yes.
Yeah, all-American city.
That wasn't in the 80s, it was in the 70s. It was in the 80s.
I lose track of time.
Yeah, it was in the 70s, because I remember seeing that, and that was big, because we had big corporations here.
Yes.
We had Coca-Cola, we was making Cokes.
Dr. Pepper
And
plant.
we had we had a Pepsi plant, and what else? Oh, we had Coors that was coming on the other side over there, because it was right there, right off of 2nd Avenue or so.
In the 70s, when I worked for the ambulance service, we'd take the ambulance down to the Dr. Pepper plant and buy the wooden crates, 24
Yes.
bottles to a crate,
Uh-huh.
and take them back to our office and drink them.
Yeah. And you could take your bottles back and get some money for
Yeah,
it.
that's 5 cents.
Yeah, see, that's what I like about Butch right here.
5 cents.
And there was so many great memories. And I'm just only giving you just a few minutes because we're gonna have some more things. But Butch, I definitely have to share with you about Culbert's Dairy and then Culbert's Dairy
Culbert's
and Cooper's.
And Cooper.
They had a truck that would go through the neighborhood, go through McClish and all those streets to deliver your milk and drop the bottles off at your house.
I've got a funny story to tell you about
Go ahead.
Cooper's. I was working, like I told you, after school at Hunt's grocery store on 3rd Northeast, and Arlie was delivering the Cooper's milk in the milk truck to the grocery store. And I'd see him, you know, a couple times a week. And Mr. Hunt, who owned the store, I asked who that was. He said, "That's Arlie Cooper. Cooper's milk."
Yes.
I believed it because I was 10 years old and believed anything. He wasn't Mr. Cooper.
They pulled a leg on him.
They pulled my leg, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Arlie Cooper.
But let me just share this as we wrap this up about growing up in Ardmore, and mainly a lot of things happened on the east side, and there are a couple of things I definitely want to run by. But do you remember when we had the Continental Trailways bus that came right there, and people from Dallas and everywhere? Not only did we have the Amtrak train, but we had the bus station.
Yes.
Because they had a diner that you can go eat and play.
Had a little diner.
My newspapers came in there and I picked them up and
delivered. They had newspapers from all over the United States
coming to
brought in by the buses, like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, San Diego, New York, Chicago, Dallas. These buses.
Even the Dallas Morning News was sold up here.
Yeah, they were brought in by the buses and deposited in the southwest corner of that building. So when you walked in, the diner was on your left, and on the south side was, in that corner, was stacks and stacks and stacks of papers, newspapers from all over the country.
Yeah, all this was going on in Ardmore during that time period. And I'm a little boy, I'm like, I had got a job because Mr. Raymond Thacker trusted me to deliver those papers, and I did. I worked for him for 3 years or so, but it was just a great thing. Now, as we wrap up this part of the east side of Ardmore, the most important thing is people ask me, Butch, was there really a swimming pool at Whittington Park?
Yes.
And was there really a zoo?
2 swimming pools.
Where were they at? Because I know the one big one was in the pavilion, up at the top. Where were the swimming pools at?
The swimming pool, you know where they have the locomotive set?
Yeah, they used to be back there going toward the Hardy Murphy.
It was the swimming pool was just to the east of that locomotive. Now the wading pool for the little kids was just to the north of the big swimming pool. So there was really 2 pools, one for adults and one for kids.
What about the zoo?
The zoo was on the south side of the Coliseum. They had a number of animals in there. I went a few times. I didn't go a whole lot, but I remember, you know, the tigers and the buffalo. One time I was there standing at the fence with the buffalo and looking at him, and he charged at me.
Oh, Lord.
Scared me to death.
Did you have some red in there?
Oh, it scared me to death because I just knew I was going to die. You know, I was only 12 or 15 years old, and my imagination, that buffalo charged me.
Well, listen, this is just a little segment or so, and I appreciate everybody. Butch, I got to get them to get your website and information. How can they get all the history? Because you have audio too as well.
Yes. The website is all spelled out, oklahomahistory.net. oklahomahistory.net. That's been there over 22 years. There is a lot of work on that, and you would be hard pressed to find a website in Oklahoma like mine.
Yes.
Because I had the first website in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah. Well, in Ardmore.
In Ardmore, yeah.
In Ardmore, I know I was the first. None of the businesses that have websites now, they didn't even exist for the website when I had one.
Yeah.
So I was kind of a forerunner in that.
Yeah, well, I believe you. So I learned a lot, and I saw some great things. And one thing about your website, you had a listing of every business that was located, Humpty Dumpty, which was on Broadway, TG&Y, J.C. Yates. You can find out.
Through the years, I would post like one street in all the businesses. Then maybe a month later, I'd post another newsletter and have all the businesses on G Street. And eventually, I got a lot of businesses, and a lot of those businesses are gone now.
Yeah,
they're gone.
Well, next time when you and I talk, I want to talk about Pickens County, and I want to talk about the history of Rolfe. Believe it or not, you're not gonna believe it, but Rolfe, Oklahoma, which is in Pontotoc County. There were 4 counties during that time period, and everything came through Tishomingo. We got to talk about the 5 civilized tribes and the impact that you see the sign that says the Trail of Tears. We got to talk about the Choctaw Nation.
Right.
We got to talk about the Chickasaws. And in closing, the 700 Ranch, I never realized it, but I lived 1 block away from that. I lived at 528 2nd Avenue Southeast, and my Uncle Luke lived right there in the southwest corner of G Street.
G Street, that's right.
Is where the 700 Ranch. So when you go out to the Armory and you see that house, that house has an incredible story, and we're going to tell you about that.
Yeah.
Just say something about the 700
Well, I was
Ranch.
just going to say that the 700 house is at the museum.
Yes.
Southern Oklahoma Museum now, which was the Armory.
Mm-hmm.
Armory building.
And I did go skating at the Armory too, as well too.
I did once or twice, not much.
But it's some history about that 700 Ranch. It would take us a long time to tell you that, but
it's got a lot of history behind it, good and bad.
Good, yeah, interesting, and some very interesting stuff. And then we'll also tell you about the connection between Gainesville and Ardmore.
Yeah.
Because it's an incredible story.
Yeah. I have great grandparents buried in Gainesville.
Mm-hmm. And that's Cook County.
Cook County.
Yeah, so it's something special about it. Hey, but Butch, our time is up. We only wanted to make this about 30 minutes or so. But remember, you've been watching our documentary, The Eastside of Ardmore, where it actually began. I'm Cedric Bailey.
I'm Butch Bridges.
And we thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.